Hi everyone, in today's tactics video I'm going to talk through choosing secondary objectives for Astra Militarum in 9th edition. So I'll loosely cover two areas in this discussion. The first being about building your army list to achieve secondary objectives and not giving away too many to your opponent. And the second will be about choosing the actual secondary objectives themselves. These two areas are intrinsically linked and need to be considered in partnership. 9th edition is now built completely around achieving objectives, so definitely way more so than in 8th edition. So in building an army list, you need to be asking yourself, what secondaries am I trying to achieve? And what am I giving my opponent by fielding a particular type of unit? The secondary objectives from Chapter Approved 2021 are segmented into 5 groups, with you choosing 3 in total and only 1 from each group. The first is battlefield supremacy, requiring you to dominate the board. Potential Astra Militarum units to use to achieve this could be Scout Sentinels, Scions with a Grey Shoot deployment, and Infantry Squads with the Move order. The second, No Mercy No Respite, is about you destroying enemy units or keeping some of your units alive. You need to think about how your army is built. No prisoners could work well against an infantry-rich army list, further beefed with multi-wound Bulgrams. Grind them down would be an easy choice if your opponent had a small elite army against an infantry-heavy Astra Militarum list. And to the last, could be hard for Astra Militarum, given your highest cost units are typically squishy vehicles. The third group, Shadow Operations, requires you to perform actions. These are either in separate table quarters, the centre of the board, on objective markers, or near or within your opponent's deployment zone. These actions can be performed by infantry models, which would be super easy again for an infantry heavy list. Conscripts, Scions, Veterans and Bulgrams can obviously also perform actions, but the last group you want to be using only in dire circumstances, as their damage output should be maximised as opposed to them performing actions. The fourth, Purge the Enemy, requires you to destroy a particular style of enemy unit. Again, thinking about your army list, do you only take a maximum of 4 characters to give your opponent a maximum of only 12 victory points for Assassinate? Or do you strictly only take a group of vehicles that give your opponent a maximum of 8 victory points? Say for example 4 Lehman Russ tanks with a 12 roots each. The last Warpcraft, you can either go 2 ways. Simply take no psychers at all, giving you the option of choosing Appall the Witch, which would be fantastic against Grey Knights or Thousand Suns. Or take several, allowing you to choose one of the remaining 3 Warpcraft objectives. This is an obvious trade-off, given Astra Militarum Astropaths at 35 points are a near auto include, given the Psychic Barrier or Night Shroud Psycho ability can really boost Bulgrams if you are taking them in your list. So from that you can see by examining your own list, you'll already start to understand what secondaries to choose. Let's say you're taking a traditional competitive 2000 point Astra Militarum army list. You've got 4 tank commanders, 6 infantry squads, 2 manticores, 3 or 4 supporting infantry characters, a mortar team and a 5-man Bulgram blob. So let's look at this list and ask, what would your opponent choose as far as secondary objectives are concerned? So starting with those from No Mercy No Respite and Purge the Enemy, both objective groups that require you to kill stuff. Would they take no prisoners? Maybe not. This list has about 70 wounds across the non-vehicle, monster or character models, so only about 7 victory points to go after. Grind them down, as I said before, could work if they're fielding a low unit count list. Adeptus Custodies or Knights are very extreme examples, given they could both easily chop or blast for an infantry squad or tank commander each turn, whilst we would probably struggle to kill more than 1 or 2 of their units each turn. To the last is always a gamble, especially for guard, given the most expensive units in our list are tank commanders, which are pretty squishy at the moment. Now onto Assassinate of Purge the Enemy. This will be a great choice against this list, given we've got 7 characters with 4 tank commanders and 3 to 4 infantry characters. Bring it down in this case is actually inferior, as the 6 vehicles could only score a maximum of 12 victory points, versus the 15 victory points on Assassinate. Titan Hunter is clearly only useful if playing against Knights, and even then, bring it down could be better, given it awards points for killing vehicles, which a lot of the mini Knights are classified as. So pausing there, when it comes to actually playing a game, try to always ask your opponent for their army list ahead of the game, so you can work out which secondaries to go after, and of course generally work out a game plan. It could actually be that you determine that your opponent's list is structured in a way that none of those we've looked at could be of any use. So with that in mind, let's now look at some of the movement-focused secondary objectives. Engage or front sees a lot of play, simply because it's easy to achieve. However, you should think about the map and deployment zone. Given it awards 2 victory points per turn for having 3 table quarters, you want to be achieving this from turn 1. So these mission deployment zones easily allow you to achieve this. Vital Intelligence, Sweep and Clear, and Priority Target. Whilst these ones don't, Surround and Destroy, and the Scouring. Now there are certain units, like Scout Sentinels with their pre-game movement, Ratlings with their Find the Best Spot rule, or Signs with their Grab Shoots, that can secure your 3rd or 4th table quarter. But a cunning opponent could of course screen you out and block you from achieving that extra quarter. This nicely segues us onto behind enemy lines. The only real way Guard could achieve this is via Scions or a cunning use of reinforcements. This also needs to be considered in light of the enemy deployment zone and your opponent's ability to screen. Choosing this on the Scouring mission when playing Tunids could be tough, but easier in Vital Intelligence or battle lines against an elite army. Stranglehold is a bit of a gamble for Astra Militarum. We are pretty good at securing objectives but usually struggle to hold them. You would also want to not be doing this on any missions with less than 6 objective markers, so not those with 4 or 5. And segueing again this time onto action-based shadow operations. Now if you've got an infantry rich list, these are typically quite good, as you've got enough spare bodies to be performing actions. Raise the banners should only be taken if there are at least 6 objective markers. Assume you're able to do this on 3 banners, as opposed to those missions with only 4 or 5, again assuming you can only raise banners on 2 objective markers. Investigate Signal is uber risky, with perhaps only Sweep and Clear allowing it for Astra Militarum. You'd have to perhaps rush the centre of the board with Bulgrams, firstly getting the first turn, some infantry squads and Lehman Russes to defend whilst the action is being done. Retrieve Octarius data also sees a lot of play, and you could partner this very well with Engage all fronts. Again, some missions will allow it to be easier done, and deployed teleport scramblers could be partnered very well with behind enemy lines. Deployed teleport scramblers is also good in the fact it can be done within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. So easy on retrieval mission, scorched earth, battle lines or overrun. This of course relies upon the completing unit surviving until your next command phase, so do be careful when rushing an infantry squad up to perform this action. A classic play would be perhaps dropping in a Scion squad or bunch of squads behind enemy lines, with one of those units deploying teleport homers for the rest of the game and scoring you a juicy 4 victory point. So from that exercise, it's a bit clearer on how to choose the killing stuff, movement and action based objectives. You can determine the first one on your opponent's army list, whilst the second and third are based on the mission and what units of yours can achieve those objectives in your army list. So the final set, which I covered briefly before, is Warpcraft. Now if you're playing someone who has no psychers at all, i.e. Tau or Necrons, this will be an easy way to achieve. Or likewise if you've seen your opponent's list and want to cheekily add a Astropath or Primaris Psyker to your list, you're probably going to be bagging at least 12 victory points in the game. I think taking any of these objectives against someone who's got a strong Psyker presence is pretty risky, given for example Craftworld Psykers can cast multiple denies and often have +1 to the Psyker test. So finally, each mission has an optional secondary objective that can be taken as one of your 3 secondaries. For those of the 9 Strike Force missions I've been looking at, they range from being ridiculously hard to achieve to being absolute must-haves. The 2 missions that I always take them on are Vital Intelligence and Priority Target. Have a go at these next when you play these missions and let me know how you go. Right, so there you have it. Some guidance on how to choose secondary objectives for Astra Militarum. Hopefully helpful and helps you better understand what can be quite a complex area of the rules. So as always, if you want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment or by subscribing, or via YouTube super thanks, or joining my Patreon platoon, where I'll call out your name in the Patreon platoon roll call at the end of each video. Patreon platoon, sound off. Lieutenant Mitchell, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeants Brady, Udall, Gilliam, Merrill, Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Witten, Guardsman Combs, Heels, Nitin, Nguyen, Tom, Tonkin.